Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where last episode we got the core for our large asteroid mover moved up into orbit and we need to assemble it. So I've got this thus far, which is largely what we're going for. I mean, I don't necessarily love this thing just sticking out here, but I mean, I was thinking about it and we can always have this grab on from the one down here and then grab on to the asteroid, right? But I do think that it would be a little bit better if we were to toss in a hinge here. So we would want that to be like some sort of an alligator hinge, probably. Have it go something like this-ish. I don't necessarily love that. Maybe have one of these. That's a little small. Maybe have one of these hinges, and we really only need the one. So then it would go there, and then this guy would go in like this. And then this default angle would be -90, like this, so that it's just tucked away for launch. And then we can have it, you know, be whatever angle we need it to be to grab onto the rock. That'll probably make things a little bit better. We should not have these solar panels extended at launch, obviously. Otherwise, this is largely the same. I've added in an RCS tank and some RCS thruster blocks. I don't expect them to do too much. They're mostly just for some fine-tuning on steering with the Clampotron docking port here. We've got this advanced reaction wheel. We've got an RTG as well. We can probably actually ditch the RTG and have this section be powered by the photovoltaic panels. That's probably fine. That will save us a decent chunk of cash. So we'll go ahead and do that. We've got the docking port on here, and now we just need a way to lift this thing. It's already got rid of the oxidizer, so that's great. We don't want a propellant here. So what we want at this point is a decoupler. So this would be a TD50 decoupler. Then we want a smaller tank, like a Kerbal S4 256 probably. This would have liquid fuel and oxidizer. Some of this oxidizer I expect is going to be jettisoned, for the record. Then we'd want, like, a Corgi is even a little on the small end. What is it that we want here? A Kodiak? What is the ISP of the Corgi? 355 in vacuum. So the Kodiak is way too small, obviously. What is the size for the 5-meter diameter vacuum engine? Is there such an engine? I don't know. Can we search for a 5-meter? Apparently not. Okay, good to know. So what would the vacuum engine be for that? Is there one that is that size? I have no idea if there is one. I feel like there should be. The Bobcat's going to be way too small. We could just go with a Corgi. It is a little small, but it would do the trick. I think that's the largest vacuum optimized engine that we have. I'm pretty sure. I mean, that is a pretty good specific impulse on it, no doubt about that. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the largest. The Poodle is going to be a little smaller, in fact, quite a lot smaller. We've used Poodles extensively in the past, but that's not going to be an option for this one. So I think we're just going to have to use the Corgi. That'll have to do. Then we're going to put in a TD50 here. That is a little bit awkward on that situation. We're probably going to want to strut that together just to be on the safe side. And we're going to bring those up to, like, here. That only connected 4 of them. So did that. Okay, we'll try it on the inside lip here. Up to this inside lip. Still only connected 4. Interesting. Maybe it has to do with the snapping? Huh. Let's take it down to 4. And that works. Then, I did not mean to grab that decoupler. Then I want to grab the strut connector again, and we'll do it manually. I do want 8 struts here. Okay, that works. Sure. These struts, of course, are not intended to hold this together. They are intended to anchor us to the pusher, so that this thing doesn't wiggle around. So that's the plan there. That will, of course, mean that we're going to need a engineer up there, but that's fine. We'll tackle that later. Now, as far as lifting this goes, that's going to be real interesting. We're going to need probably one of these Kerbal 512s, and then we would lift that maybe like we did previously with the 4 mainsails. I mean, that did work out. And this should be a lighter lift vehicle, I think? I don't know. With the second stage, maybe not. Maybe not. We'll see. That's a 4x1. We want that to be a quad. And we are going to put in mainsails here. So that is these guys. Quad mainsails. What is that thrust to weight? 0.9. Okay, so this is a little bit heavier. You know, we can probably omit this stage. And the reason why I say that is because we know that we were able to get to orbit pretty easily with what we had before. So I'm going to flip this decoupler around just so we can remove these struts. We do not need that weight or that cost, and then we'll flip it back around. There we go. Okay, so what is this thrust to weight? 1.19. Much better. And then we can lift that with some SRBs like we did previously. So we would put in... We might be able to get away with quad SRBs here. I do want to turn snapping back on. There we go. And these would need to be also Clydesdales. We'll see how this goes with quad. Move these guys right on down. Something along the lines of this. And we know that we need some aerodynamic nose cones on them. That was... what? Not those guys. We went through this process previously. These guys. There we go. And we know for a fact that we need more than just a single strut here. This strut is not capable of holding this thing together. So we're going to strut these also up here. It doesn't have to go there. Something like this. And then I'm also going to strut it in the center. Okay, like that. What's our thrust to weight here? 1.15. We combine those together, 1.68. So... and this is probably lacking not in thrust, but in delta V. That is the concern now. So, if this is lacking in delta V, then we have a problem because we need to have enough delta V to get this stage into orbit while only burning like half of this liquid fuel. So we're probably going to have to go to at least 6 of these side boosters. Let's see what that looks like. 1.35 delta V, or 1.35 thrust to weight. We can go for the full 8. That's going to be expensive. The other option is we could go for liquid-fueled side boosters. And that might be a better option here. So this is 337 at this point, so let's get rid of these for the time being. Actually, I'm going to undo that, and we're going to save this as the large asteroid tank, just so we can revert this later if need be. But we know that this is 337k. We're going to take these off. That's basically half the cost right now. What if we were to bring this down to quad, and then we were to attach on some big orange tanks? So Rockamax Jumbo 64s. They look kind of pathetically tiny in comparison. But we put a pair of those, and underneath that, we put an additional mainsail. Like this. What does that look like for thrust to weight? We're going to have to combine those stages together, like so. That's 1.43. So if we go up to 6, I need to grab this guy. There we go. If we go up to 6 of those, that is 10 mainsails at 1.5. It's slightly cheaper. I think we should say that that's comparable in cost. Because we're still going to need to add on our aerodynamic nose cones, which isn't hugely expensive. That would be these guys. And we are also going to need to do our struts and our fuel duct, which also aren't hugely expensive. So I think broadly this is similar in cost. But I think it's probably slightly better. So we're just going to run our fuel duct in like that. There we go. And then we're going to need to strut this together. So our first strut is going to connect from the top here up past this decoupler. Then we're going to put in a second strut down at the bottom here that connects over here. And then I'm still going to put in that third strut, I think, that connects right in the center, just because I want to be sure. Okay, so something kind of like this. That gives us 1.49 thrust to weight right off. Okay. That's probably enough. Now, one thing I want to do is I want to grab this and move it down and have this be a little bit more top attached, and then grab the radial decouplers and move them up a bit. That might be too far up. Something about like that. Okay. So this is slightly cheaper than the SRB method, and probably broadly the same overall. I think that's going to be the case. So ultimately, we're going to want to eject all of this stuff eventually, but not until we're linked up. We do want to attach or detach these partway up through the atmosphere. Out of curiosity, would we be better off going for vectors here? 295 at sea level. The at sea level for these are what we're interested in. To 85 at sea level for the mainsails. So the overall thrust in sea level is 936.508. So the mainsails are larger thrust at sea level. And they are a little cheaper too. We would need 2 vectors to outperform 1 mainsail, and that would fit, to be clear. I think. No. The vectors are the same size as the mainsail. For some reason, I was thinking the vectors were the same size as the swivels. I don't know why. But yeah, they're the same size as the mainsail, I guess. So, yeah, we're going to stick with the mainsails for sure. A little bit slow off the pad. That's no doubt about that one. But we're going to have to launch this thing 8 times, and I'm not going to make you sit through all 8 of those launches, I don't think. It's going to be the same thing over and over again, but let's go ahead and save this. I'm comfortable overwriting that since this is slightly cheaper. And the question is, how's this? Does this deliver us where we want to go? I'm reasonably sure it does. Reasonably. But not entirely. We are going to have to park a pod out there with an engineer to do the final assembly. That is a mission for maybe next episode. And like in between episodes, I can be working on firing off several launches. So we can do like this launch this episode. And then in between the episode, I can, well, I want to have the engineer up there before we dock up too many of these. But we can send up like the engineer next episode and get this lashed in. And then after that, that's a little bit off center, but okay. After that, then we would in theory, be able to bring the others up off camera. That would be the goal. Well, for right now, let's go ahead and bring this thing up and hope that it works. We haven't tested it. Well, no tremendous wiggling off the pad. That's good. We are definitely a little bit slow off the pad. No doubt about that one. Let's go ahead and lock to prograde at this point. And we'll see how that goes. I wouldn't mind punching up out of the atmosphere a little bit quicker this time. So there is that. You can see the delta V is increasing here as we ascend through the atmosphere. That is fully... Okay. So we've got about 42 seconds left of burn in these tanks. That's unsurprising and completely fine, I hope. Only about another 800 meters per second there. That does feel low, but we are punching through the most difficult portions. Okay. I feel like our ascent trajectory is a little bit shallow, or rather a little bit steep here. We should probably be working on leveling out pretty soon. I think I'll wait until after these are burned out. Well, actually, no. We should be going basically now. We're going to be burning them out soon, so I'm going to hold here. I think we're okay. A bit of a spicy detachment there, but it's fine. We're going to head over at this point to the horizon and see how this goes. We're definitely picking up a roll as we attempt to turn here, but I was able to counteract that. Boy, it really wants to roll. Okay. Well, we'll park here, and I think that we have enough Delta V to make this happen. So it looks good. We have a lot of liquid fuel here that we cannot burn because we do not have oxidizer for it. Boy, it really wants to roll. I'm not sure why it's trying to roll so hard, but okay. That's good to know. I might try to make an adjustment on that one. But at this point, we are holding on time to apoapsis, so we're now pressing it up a little bit. I think we are going to stop at 80 kilometers. That should be fine. Okay. Actually, for the intercept, we could go all the way to 100. 100 is probably okay. It really wants to roll, this thing. No doubt about it. Probably because of this arm, actually, now that I think about it. Okay, so we're just going to take this up to 100 kilometer apoapsis height. There, we'll call that good. We're in space now, and we have about 700 meters per second. Let's go ahead and circularize this. That's going to be about 225 meters per second. Okay. We'll position for that burn. We were very zoomed out there. And we should also make sure to extend our solar panels. We do have plenty of power for the time being. Like, we're not going to run out of power anytime soon, but we should make sure to do that. We don't have a long-range comms device on this because we don't need it. That will not, in fact, be necessary. I'm not entirely sure why there's a strut connector here. But okay. I guess that's fine. There's also this one down here, of course. Okay, we're going to start this burn in about 2 minutes. We'll go ahead and warp towards that. I'm hoping that we're absolutely fine on our timing. Or not necessarily our timing, but our Delta V. I think we'll be fine. It's going to be a little bit squishy on the Delta V. But we should be okay. Okay, we're going to start this burn here in about 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1, now. And our 4 mainsails carrying us into orbit. We're just going to try to circularize this as best we can. This is close enough. It is close enough. Okay, so now we're going to set this as our target. So we're about 0.4 degrees off. We'll need to adjust that. And we will come around over this way, burning anti-normal. Just a very, very minute burn. Okay, something kind of like that, 18 meters per second. I'm going to thrust limit these at this point down to like 10% thrust. All of them. Just because we don't need their ridiculous level of thrust at this point. So 10% and 10%. And that'll make it easier to hit these relatively minute adjustments. There we go. So yeah, now that's a 7-second burn. We'll get aligned for that. We've got 475 meters per second left. Okay, I'm going to physics warp as we align to it. That does take a little while, no doubt about it. Okay, so we are basically aligned now, and we'll go ahead and warp to it. Sun is going to be coming up here momentarily, and that will give us our solar panels charging, which is fine. And we're about 1 minute away from this burn now. We're not correctly aligned entirely, so I'll let that happen for a bit here. In fact, we can physics warp as we correctly align. That does change the alignment, doesn't it? It does. Okay, we're basically correctly aligned. Let's go ahead and time warp here. Okay. And let's burn. That's probably good enough. Yes. Okay, so at this point, we need to plot ourselves an intercept, and that should be relatively simple. It may require some orbits here. Let's see here. It does, I think, require an orbit here, but only one. And that didn't press the button. Okay. Orbit? There we go. Fantastic. And what does that intersect there? 6.8 kilometers, 42 meters per second apart. So our delta V is absolutely fine. We can probably tune this down a little bit. And let's just bring that down a smidge. 2.7. Okay. Maybe a little bit of radial here. No. No radial. Let's try a little normal. If we can get into this view. Okay. No, that doesn't really seem to change it at all. Okay. This is probably close enough. 2.7 kilometers should do. So we'll align for that. We will physics warp as we turn. And we're going to have to do an orbit here. But that burn will be in about 34 minutes, and there we go. We'll go ahead and warp. So yeah, this is a relatively painless intercept, absolutely. And we've got plenty of delta V to make this happen. I'm not concerned about that at this point. Assuming that we get similarly efficient flights on the other ones, that should be fine. Okay, we're now about a minute away from our burn here, and we will continue to... Actually, we need to get turned. We are not turned for that burn. I'm going to physics warp as we turn a bit and get a little closer. Okay. Just need to turn a bit more. Is that an eclipse? That is an eclipse. I thought that felt like one. Wild. Okay. We're in position now, so we can go ahead and warp. And our burn is going to be in 10 seconds here. So let's just go ahead and burn now. Cool. 15 meters per second to go. Okay, we'll call that good enough. 0.3 meters per second. We'll be a little ways out. 2.8 kilometers still. That's pretty good. Okay, so we're going to need to flip around to target retrograde, but there's no real point in doing it right now. We're going to warp around to over here. And the eclipse is ending. Fantastic. So around we go. And we're going to flip to target retrograde around now. We should have the target... It's about 10 kilometers out. Okay. I'm not sure where exactly it is right now, but it's around here somewhere. Exciting. It should be towards Kerbal, or no, away from Kerbal from us. So out over this way. There it is. Hello. So yeah, that's 10.2 kilometers out right now, and we are going to need to burn sometime up here. Yeah, right about here, 39.9 meters per second. Again, we're going to use this only for the timer, so 39.9. Sounds good. We're not caring about this directionality. We're going to burn target retrograde 39.9 meters per second, just for the timer. Cool. So that burn will be starting in about 3 minutes. We'll just finish up our turn here. And it's not going to be exactly correct, but it's going to be close-ish. Once we get to our turn position here, or rather to target retrograde, we'll warp in and then we will sit at 1 minute for a moment and let that change. So let's just go ahead and do that. Yeah, you can see that drifted quite a bit. So we will need to make our way up. That's fine. That's actually very close to just straight up retrograde. I guess that's because this is happening at the apoapsis. It probably is basically going to be straight up retrograde. Now that I look at that, that should be the case with it being at the apoapsis. Cool. Okay, so we are largely aligned for it right now. Largely. And we can warp a little bit further here. Okay. We'll let it align a little bit more, and we'll start our burn in 3, 2, 1, now. We don't care about this. All we care about is this number. Cool. Because now we want to get our relative velocity to 0. Close enough. We're going to burn in towards the target and get a little bit closer in now. And actually, towards target is basically retrograde, it looks like. Which is exciting. But yeah, you can see we're going to be changing our speed quite a bit. We want to burn towards target at this point. Because we're still 2.9 kilometers out. We're not mega close. So our orbit is going to be fairly different still, which is fully expected. We're now going to burn in towards the target, and we're going to go until we're like 10 meters per second, I think. Should be fine. But we're going to burn that starting right about now. Okay. Now we're going to flip around to target retrograde. And what's that looking like? 1.2 kilometers? Maybe not as close as I'd like it to be. Let's bring that in a little bit more. Okay, that's starting to get further out now. So that's half a kilometer. We'll call that good. Physics warping here is fine. We will just get flipped around. And you can see that our relative speed is going down at this point. That's good. And we'll just get into position for this retrograde burn. We can now see the actual vehicle. That's great. We're not going to eject all of this at this point. Okay. So we can see the actual vehicle there, and what is our closest point of approach? That's right up over here. 7.1 meters per second. Okay, sounds good. We're going to warp about 4 minutes into the future, and you can see this is going to change a decent chunk. Feels like that bypassed a little bit, but sure. I'm just going to start a very gentle burn to kill this speed. We're using the gimbaling on this engine to turn a little bit faster. Cool. Okay, 3 meters per second. Throttling it up a little bit. 1.5. There we go. Now we are going to head on in. We're going to have to do a pretty gentle get closer burn here. That's pretty clear at this point. Actually, yeah, we need to get closer still. So we're going to bring this in, and we're going to go in at, like, a very, very minute amount. Like, 2 meters per second, probably. So let's head on in. There we go. 2 meters per second, and we're going to flip around to target retrograde. It's going to be a lengthy flip. That is always expected. But we're just going to get to as close in as we can now. And then we're going to go for our docking maneuver at that point. So we'll get that flipped on around. Okay. And we'll just continue to warp in a bit. We will need to adjust our retrograde here. Or adjust our attitude, rather. So we'll do so. What is our closest approach at this point? 0.6 kilometers, allegedly. I mean, we're already at 0.5, so I'm not trusting that anymore. We will hold here for a bit. We are definitely continuing to get closer. I would like to be something like 200 meters away, but that's maybe a little bit unlikely. Let's go ahead and warp a bit here. Yeah, this is going to be the closest we're going to get pretty soon here. Right here, in fact. This is the closest we're going to get. Or very close to it. So let's get aligned to target retrograde and do one more get closer burn. We could turn RCS on to be able to do that faster. I'm not sure if these are firing. Yeah, they are. They're just, you know, not very good at their jobs. But that's fine. We'll get that relative velocity killed. Okay, that'll do. Now we'll head on over towards target. We'll physics warp our turn, because this is a very lengthy process. Okay. And now we're going to want to head in very minutely. It's a laborious process to get this thing done, and this is why I'm not going to make you guys watch this 8 times. So we're going to head in here. Cool. We're going to head in at merely 2 meters per second. Again. I think. That's claiming 0.1 kilometers. I'm not really trusting the timing on it. Okay. Sounds good. So I'm going to turn RCS on at this time, and I want to adjust our velocity a bit here. Boy, we do like nothing for that. Okay. We're going to flip around to target retrograde. Because the only way that we can really affect this is engines. I'm probably going to omit the RCS from future versions of this. It's very ineffective. I'm not shocked by that, but it's a little sad. Any remaining fuel here will go into this tank, and that'll be fine. Okay. We're also going to have to try to get this alignment correct, although we could move this when we bring our engineer up for this lashing together. So that's probably not that big of a concern to us. We're going to be in target retrograde very soon here. We're now 200 meters out. And still getting closer. We're coming up alongside it, which is kind of perfect. I would like to set one of these as our target. There we go. Set that as the target. And we're still coming in here, so this is fine. We want the center of our rocket to be aligned with this target. So I'm going to start slowing us down a tiny bit here. We're about 2 meters per second apart right now. Just continuing to bring it down. 1 meter per second apart. Let's continue to let it drift for a bit here. And we're just going to line this up. Okay. Going to bring it down to 0.5 meter per second. There we go. Very close now. There we go. We're going to point at target. And we're going to need to roll this thing as well. We want to roll it over to be facing this forward relative to this vehicle. Okay. Let's just bring it on over. About like this. So we want the solar panels to be vertical. Like that. Cool. So we can see we braked slightly early, but we can fix that. So all we need to do is align here. And I will just stop our rotation as soon as we are. There we go. We'll switch over to this guy. We will control from this docking port, and we will set this one as our target and point at target. There we go. And we will kill that velocity in a moment as well. Cool. And point at target. And in we go. Just 0.5 meters per second. Sounds good to me. Let's dock this thing up. I'm going to turn RCS on, and I will attempt to guide us over here. Because our velocity isn't exactly the way I wanted it. The RCS is actually a little bit useful here. Okay. So we'll just do that. Cool. And we can head in again at about 0.5 meters per second since we lost a little velocity with that alteration of our heading. But let's just warp this in a bit. 10x warp. Okay. We've drifted off a bit. So once again, we are going to attempt to bring our velocity over. About like that. And lock back to target. Okay, let's get this thing docked up. I think we'll be good at this point. This fuel will go into this tank here, and then we can jettison this. We do not need these mainsails anymore. 7 meters out. Probably could have come in a little faster, but this looks fine. 3 meters out. And there we go. We are docked. We're going to immediately transfer this fuel over here. There we go. And now we no longer need this. All we need here is this tank. So we will go ahead and jettison this. And away it goes. Cool. And with that, that is our first fuel module attached to this thing. Many more to go. However, it is well past time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And next episode, we're going to need to bring up a Kerbal to do a little bit of construction up here. We need to get those struts put into place, and that will be absolutely fine. And we'll also... I'll try to get more of these up in between episodes. We'll see how that ends up going. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including Casserole, Sigma162, JJ Gamer, Spartan News, Nick Smarty, Video Games Are Not Real, Dimitri H, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.